They said it was impossible. They said, you can't put together the most elite team of comic book reviewers on the planet and do, a podcast or something like that. Despite all that, today we can proudly announce. Yeah, they were right. We couldn't do it. So instead, we brought you the most vile, ignorant, unprofessional group of comic book enthusiasts we could find. This is Panel to Panel, the Game Rage Magazine comic podcast.
Oh, that's correct. You heard it. That description was not inaccurate. This is the most vile, disgusting, unprofessional group of individuals you will ever hear talk about podcasts, comic books. As per usual, my name is Josh, and I'm here today with Adam.
Yes, hello.
And this is going to be the first episode in quite a while of Panel to Panel. And before we get into that, I just wanted to give a quick shout out to...
Absolutely no.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I just wanted to give a quick plug to all of our other podcasts. If you enjoy listening to things that aren't related to comics but enjoy other things, then you can go listen to all of our other podcasts at GameRageMagazine.com or wherever podcasts are sold, such as Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And you can hear the All Gas No Trash podcast, which is centered on music and local happenings and major music news in Southern California. You can also hear the Anime Syndicate podcast, which, hell, that's self-explanatory. I don't need to tell you what that's about. You can also listen to the Butt Fuck Nowhere show, which is just basically about whatever, and a multitude of other podcasts, including Game Rage Movies and TV, which, if you enjoy X-Men, which if you clicked on this episode because of the title, you should go to Game Rage Movies TV podcast, and you should hear our current reviews of the X-Men 97 show, streaming only on Disney+. Also, you can check out the Without Censor podcast. Excellent episode, excellent interviews. It's very good. You should check it out. Anyways, that's it for that. So, do you have anything to add on plugs or anything?
No.
Okay, all right, cool. So, before, obviously, we're going to do is if you are a person who knows how to read, you know what this is going to be about. It's the X-Men House of X, or as Adam likes to call it, House of Sex, issue number 1.
Yeah, so this is the start of the Dawn of X series, or rather the Dawn of X arc storyline that is set forth by Jonathan Hickman, the legendary comic book writer who was also worked on the legendary run of Fantastic Four, only for both things to go away for an extended period of time. I imagine because of the Fox deal, or rather Sony and Fox owning different parts of the Marvel universe, and maybe possibly Disney not wanting to promote those assets or IPs. So X-Men went away for a hot minute, and this was the first reintroduction of the X-Men in, I think, 2021. And we have this all-star fucking team. I mean, my dick was hot for this fucking duo, Pepe Larraz and Jonathan Hickman. You couldn't ask for a better team. I think Pepe Larraz is an excellent artist. I mean, probably amongst my personal favorites. If I could have bought some of the original art for this series, I mean, I'm talking about stuff he sold from like directly from his website.
Right. Okay.
I would have loved that, and I don't remember the exact setup for this thing. The X-Men just were reintroduced. I mean, they obviously have a continuity, but how they fit into the X-Men, or rather the Marvel universe at that time, I don't remember exactly. It's kind of hazy. So I think for all intents and purposes, this feels somewhat standalone-ish, but they do interact with Marvel characters, as we come to see even in the issue. But X-Men are kind of their own thing largely. They just happen to be in the Marvel universe.
Yeah, and I kind of think that was a mistake for Disney to not promote the other things, because at the end of the day, you still own the property. Yeah, maybe you're not making money on these movies. I mean, I guess per se, as if you were to be the one to make it. I mean, the licensing deal, I don't know how exactly it works or how it was working for that, but at the end of the day, you still own the characters and you still own the properties. You might as well try to promote it and get more, because more people that go read the things may go read the comics, or they may go, you're still gonna make money somehow. So I don't know. But anyways, I am definitely not the historian of writers and artists and panelists and everything that has to do with comics as you are. So that is good to know all and hear all those interesting facts about the artists and some of the things that they've done in the past.
Yeah, and I can't remember exactly who, because again, it's been a while. I've basically been away from comics for a good 2 or 3 years, but I could have sworn when they actually launched the X-Men 97 series, because I think it was a comic book, RB Silva, who does the art for Powers of X, or Pepe Larraz, one of those two. I think it was RB Silva that worked on the X-Men 97 series, if I'm not mistaken.
Like the original.
They actually did a series that was specifically about the X-Men animated series. I mean, it's not main continuity, but it was about the X-Men animated universe or continuity.
That's pretty cool.
So, but anyways, this is the reason I wanted to talk about this to start us off, or, to dive into comic books for this podcast, is because, man, X-Men constantly get kicked in the dick all the time. And even then, even in Powers of X, they don't really win. But for the sake of just enjoying things as they are, I suppose, it is nice to just read House of X as it is, to just read it as a standalone thing, because I think you'll appreciate it. And I don't want to spoil. I'm not going to say anything else, because it just feels nice. Like it feels nice for the X-Men to get their due in some way. And this comic does that to start off this particular run. And yeah, Jonathan Hickman eventually walks away from the Dawn of X, or rather the X-Men continuity, which kind of sucks, because it's like he laid out all the groundwork and then he fucking left. And it sort of pissed me off, because why are you going to invest me in this whole world if you're not even going to finish the fucking thing? But that's okay, though, because just for the sake of this, we're just going to enjoy the start of it and assume that after House of X and Powers of X, that's how it ends.
Yeah,
that's all that happens.
This is like a one shot, basically. Yeah. And so for those of you that don't know, this series is a little bit different than maybe your typical mainstream comic series. This is 2 6-issue series that basically intermingle with each other. There's House of X, and then there's Powers of X. And so we're going to do it in the order in which you're supposed to actually read the books. Mm-hmm. So it's like kind of it's just alternating. It's like, you read House of X 1 and then Powers of X 1. And then I think there's a weird section in the middle, according to the reading order, where it was like 4 and then 5 and then 4 again, or something like that of the next one. So there's one spot in there where it does that, but you'll see, we're going to do this in the order it's supposed to be done. And so this first episode is just going to be, we're going to do one issue at a time. So this one's going to be House of X issue 1. And as is the namesake of this podcast, we are going to go panel by panel discussing, maybe not every fucking line. It's not like we're going to read the whole thing, but we're going to discuss it on that sort of a minutia level.
Or just to enjoy
those things.
The whatever it is that stands out to us.
Right. Yeah. And so first and foremost, the cover, right? The book cover, man, and I will say this, you've read this series. I have not. I had never read this before. And when I clicked on, when I went to go look at this thing, and I was like, holy shit, this is going to be awesome. Just seeing, not knowing anything, obviously making assumptions about the cover. This is clearly obviously Professor X. that obviously that's Magneto. You got Wolverine, you got Jean Grey, and then you got Cyclops in the little background there. And just the shading of the lines, man, of like showing how they're coming out of this fucking like portal thing, man, that was really cool. Like just the way they did it, man. I was like, oh, this is gonna be good. I can't wait to dive into it.
Yeah, everybody looks fucking pretty pretty
all
decent
right. Yeah.
and pretty all right. I mean, it's possible if you are familiar with Professor X or Xavier, you typically see him in a wheelchair. And this is where things changed. From the last that I remember, Xavier died at some point. Cyclops killed him, I believe, in the X-Men Schism, X-Men Civil War thing. And yeah, Cyclops killed him, I believe. And Xavier's mind, I believe, was trapped in a mutant's body named Phantom X. He has 3 brains. One of them isn't real. It's just described as a third brain. So his being was in there, and somehow, I don't remember exactly, but he ended up getting a new corporal body. But yeah, you got all the staples in fucking X-Men, dude. You got Wolverine, Magneto. It just feels good to see all of them standing together, implying that they're all on the same page, even after the fact that, yeah, there are 2 different schools of thought when it comes to mutant. There's, assimilation. There's Xavier, who wants to be part of the world, the living world with humans. And there's Magneto, who is not a pacifist. He's, trying to create a world for mutants to exist by aggressive means.
Yeah.
But this page, this cover alone says otherwise, that there seems to be something going on, that they're all on the same page and they're all alive, because Xavier wasn't alive for a long time. And one of the things that's cool too to point out is the color scheme on Magneto. Obviously, they ditched the normal purple and reddish pink kind of motif that he normally goes with, implying essentially he's a bad guy. But now it's mainly white with a little bit of black in it. And when I first saw that, I immediately thought, oh, this is going to be quote unquote like good guy Magneto. But it's good guy Magneto because they've all gotten on the same page now, it seems like, with the mutants. So there is no more mutant civil war, essentially. There's no more mutants that are, I mean, yeah, there are some, but like all the big heavy hitters are now on the same team, basically. And it's just, I think that's to signify like, hey, he's not the same Magneto, or he is the same Magneto as before, but people are going to see him a lot differently, because it's clear that it's black and white, man. It's just like, I don't know. The best part is he's wearing the X symbol, implying that he's on the same page. The white, to me, oh man, in my estimation, it comes across as a Greek philosopher or a toga, something along those lines, and the purity. I mean,
yeah,
because this issue to me kind of portrays why he's wearing white towards the very end of it.
Right. Yeah.
So I don't know. Let's get into it, man. But the cover's fucking awesome. Pepe Larraz, and then I forgot the names. Is it Garcia or Gracia atop? Gracia, who did the coloring. Spectacular job. I mean, you see them coming through a portal, and everybody looks everybody's looking fabulous.
Yeah, and one of the things that was interesting about this series is they chose to do these little snippets in the middle that they're just like they're like little things from like a data file or something like that. And this is the first instance we get of it where it just basically says, humans of planet Earth, while you slept, the world changed, Professor X. So it's like, oh shit, already something's afoot here. And then we get into the first real page of the actual book, and man, the light, just the color, everything is just so good here. This is like alluding to the tree of life, basically, is what I get from this. You've got a male and a female come out of some weird egg shit, essentially, to me, implying like I immediately got like Genesis of the Bible, like Adam and Eve type fucking vibes off of this.
Oh man, it gets weird because you are. I think you're on a point with that.
And yeah, what do you think? You got?
Oh man, as you'll come to find out, man, as well-meaning or benevolent as Xavier thinks of himself, he gives off some weird messianic or messiah complex vibes here, or Jim Jones.
Yeah.
It's weird, dude. The smile has like a Mona Lisa look to it, where you're not really sure if he's like sinister or I don't know, man. It's somewhere in between, but even I don't even fully trust what the fuck is going on with Xavier, but he's holding up this guy who maybe might be Cyclops because he's got some red flare shit coming out of his eyes. And then he drops the all-time great line, "To me, my X-Men," which seems godly, dude. It feels the way he's looking down at them and he says, "To me, my X-Men." Great way to start off the book.
Oh yeah, and I just wanted to say we'll see this later in the episode, but okay, like all the symbols right on here, as we learn later on in this issue, it's their language that they invented, which every mutant is born with a gene that can basically just decode that, and it's just gibberish if you're not a mutant or whatever.
Or Xavier
Or they
implanted
gave it to him. Yeah.
Xavier implanted the language to everybody when they arrive.
Right, that's what I meant. Yeah.
And they understand it.
Right, yeah. It's like they just created their own language. And it's cool that this is littered throughout the whole book. And even the whole series. And I'd be curious to see if there's anything that like it could actually translate, or if they literally were just like, oh no, we're just gonna make shit up and then no one's gonna ever know what these mean, because you can't. As a human, we would never be able to know. So that's kind of cool. And then like what's the symbolism, or what's the meaning behind what it says, you know? So then we get into this, like, I don't know, it's like a flashback kind of sequence of like maybe 5 panels where they're saying like, oh, 5 months ago, 4 months ago, 3 months ago. And it's following this flower, the blue. Oh no, wait, that's the name. That's where they're at. They're on the blue area of the moon. But 2 months ago. And then they're following this like flower thing, and they're going through all these different locales in all these different times in the recent past.
Yeah, and these are all locations, as we come to find out, where I guess it's a Krakoan plant that allows them to create a portal through this plant. So they're planting the seeds across different locations throughout the world. So we had Washington, D.C., we had Jerusalem, we had the Savage Land, Mars,
the moon.
And these are all some of the areas that have been familiar to the X-Men in the past. So I can't remember exactly all of them, but I believe it's 6 or 7. And on the last one, which is, I think, Jerusalem, it's just engulfed in this Krakoan biome or whatever, this plant life that's engulfing this building. So just implying that this growth has just completely taken over the building.
Yeah, and then so it was basically like essentially 2 weeks ago they planted this in the Jerusalem habitat, and it shows to you now where it's, like you said, it's engulfed the entire building. So it's in just a very short amount of time, these plants just explode into their own, like you said, like a biome, I guess, or whatever. And so it's now in the modern time of this, and it's, you know, they're this black limousine, a bunch of black limos pull up, and they're talking about like, oh, there's some seemingly some Americans or what have you that are ambassadors from potentially the United States, and they've come here essentially to visit or to be shown around Krakoa, right? That's the name of the mutant land,
nation state.
Yeah, nation state. And so what's funny is the way that the human, like the regular, I guess they're just humans, right? The way that they're portrayed here, like with their facial features and stuff, it's kind of washed out, right? And it's not really like the details aren't really there. They're kind of just like, man, like these are just throwaway characters. Kind of, I don't know, to me, it's like that's how the mutants see the humans now, is they're just all throwaways. It doesn't matter. We don't need to see details of their faces because they don't matter. They're essentially insignificant in the scope.
I think these people represent our ambassadors for different countries, because one of them states that this isn't what they're what the mutant nation is offering in terms of what they want for their own sovereignty.
Oh, right. Yeah.
Is in exchange for their own sovereignty that they would be getting these drugs that the nation of Krakoa is offering to humanity, and it's 3 of them. One of them is to extend life by 5 years. One of them is for super immunity, I suppose, to be immunity to all diseases, I guess.
Yeah.
And there was one additional one I don't remember.
I think they say it in here. I think later on there's a little thing where they talk about it. And so then they're all in here just bullshitting and talking inside this building that's now this Krakoan habitat. And that's where basically they're all saying this shit about how they're going to meet with Charles or they're going to meet with Xavier. And Magneto shows up. And he's just like, bitches, I'm here. Let's fucking talk. And he's definitely, I feel like you can feel the menacing in his posture, in his eyes. Like when he says this line about, please, ambassador is fine. Like to just call me, you don't need to call me Magneto, just ambassador. That's fine. Like there's a menacing in that. I feel like when I read it, that I heard it in his voice. That was pretty cool. Like the way that they drew that.
And I feel in the context of this comic book or this series, to have him as an ambassador, I mean, not to doubt the leadership of Magneto, but Xavier has put forth a plan that everybody seems to be abiding by. And who better to bulldog for him than fucking Magneto on the global stage? Because nobody's gonna fuck with that dude.
True. Yeah.
Not only does he have the power to fuck with people, but he's also kind of a menace on the mic, dude. He can,
he can talk shit and he can whoop your ass.
Yeah.
Like, so now on this next panel section, they have the drugs or whatever. So yeah, one of them was to extend a human's life for 5 years. One of them was to basically, it's like a universal antibiotic. And then the other one was essentially it cures diseases of the mind. So any like, psychological issues you may have. And then there was 3 others that were for mutants. And one of those flowers it grows a gateway, which is the gateway that can get you to and from Krakoa, which I'm assuming is obviously the plants that they had planted.
Right.
Then this other one is a habitat of, well, it's basically, this is the Krakoa plant, right? It's like it spreads the Krakoa habitat, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
That's another plant. And then the other one is called, what's it called? No Place?
The No Place.
Yeah, that's where like if a mutant takes it, it sends them to the no place. It's like the bad place, I guess.
I don't know what it is, but it's like a nebulous space
that they just don't, you just don't want to go to, apparently. So then now we get into another, we don't know where exactly they're at a habitat in New York, one of these habitats in New York, and you got Jean Grey over here with some chillins. They're just going through. She's kind of explaining how this works, right? She's explaining that, you grow the plant, it makes this portal, and then once it sees that one of us is here, it opens the portal so that we can go. If you're a mutant, you can go in, but anyone else can't go into this thing unless they're allowed by like a mutant or whatever. Like a human couldn't open this portal, seemingly,
right?
From the way she's explaining it. And then let's see, we getting through the other panels here, and they're kind of just explaining like this one right here with all the eyes. Oh, you want to go back up? All right.
Yeah. So, I believe the woman that is not Cypher, she's I forgot what she was good at. She was a character that existed in other X-Men, but Cypher is, his power is that he can understand language, whether that's body language or Portuguese or literally anything. So Krakoa is a living landmass. So it's not just a landmass that is, an inanimate object. It's a living thing. So they're living on top of a living landmass, and Cypher is able to communicate with it to make sure it's not disturbing it. and they get to coexist with the thing, and that's how these portals and shit are allowed, is because Krakoa allows it.
Right. Okay. So yeah, it's kind of him communicating with the entity or whatever, the mass of Krakoa. It's got all these eyes and shit coming out. It's pretty cool. Then
He also has so I don't even know what the fuck happened there, but he has Warlock. I forgot what his people are called, but he looks like he's made of the Matrix.
Yeah.
But he has him on his fucking arm. I don't remember the reason why, so that's something that escapes me right now.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And they're talking about this just basically being, a whole new world. And you see Jean Grey and the kids are warping into this Krakoa proper. And it's this beautiful landscape with this beautiful waterfall, these stepstone things. It's just this lush environment. Everyone's all coming around. It's this beautiful place. And then you see Xavier and you see Wolverine over there in the distance. And the fuck is that? Oh, that's a bug. Anyways, sorry. The kids are look how happy Wolverine looks, man.
Yeah, that is disturbing because it's something's going right if Wolverine is happy.
Yeah, well, and something bad's probably going to happen too because he can never be allowed to be happy. So it was very ominous for me to see that. I'm like, Jesus Christ, I don't think I've ever seen him he is belly laughing in this fucking image with these kids, and you're like, God damn.
Yeah, so everybody's romping and playing and frolicking because they're now in their proper home, and the children are free. They have a designated area for the children, which is near the lagoon of the landmass, but everybody's free to choose where they want to go. And Jean, the first student that he ever schooled or adopted into his academy or institute, was Jean. So he says, "Welcome home, Jean. You're safe here. We all are." And you could see a little bit of a tear coming out of her eye, denoting that these are good times for the X-Men.
Yeah,
for
exactly.
the mutants.
And then we kind of get a map of a known map of the landmass that is Krakoa, essentially. And I don't know if this was to scale, but I don't know if the reason why they put this here with the whole world map is to show that Krakoa itself is larger than essentially the entire world. I think that's why they did that. I don't know, but
it's in the bottom. So in the map next to
it's this section. Oh, there we go. I see it. All right, never mind.
Yeah, so I don't know how it's not that big.
Yeah,
but
yeah, I got you.
Yeah,
it's in the middle of an ocean somewhere.
It's in the Pacific Ocean.
So this is the Krakoa Pacific area, and basically they have all the little denotations of what's where and what's what. And so they have the House of X, which I'm assuming is
Xavier's crib.
And they got House of M, which I'm assuming is Magneto's.
And it's area. A reference to a series or an event that happened where Scarlet Witch had her powers go haywire. She created an alternate reality where I think, if I'm not mistaken, House of M is where a majority of humans were killed. And when they came out of that situation, when they undid that reality, 18 million mutants died.
Oh shit.
So it reduced the population of mutants, but it is to me it's like a reference to the House of M, but what it really means is just quarters for Magneto.
Yeah, basically. And then after this we go into some, I don't know, they're by the sun or something. I don't know if it's our sun, but they're in a spacefaring type ship, and they're just kind of talking about their docking with a station of some kind. And who's it? This is these are humans, right?
Yeah. So Orchis is an operation to eliminate mutants, and it's like 6 or 7 different agencies trying to, because this will come to a head as we come to learn in Powers of X that these organizations are trying to have a one-up, trying to have humanity still exists or come on top of the mutants, because it does become a problem. And I I can't remember all the names, but they're visiting there's the space station, and it's basically there's a master mold in the middle, and it's creating the metallic materials in order for this space station to expand eventually. But they're in the process of figuring out, or their protocols are now in effect, because now that the nation of Krakoa is being founded and they're becoming a sovereign nation, all that, they're like, fuck this. Humans got to stay on top. Let's take care of business. And this person right here, Karima, she's an Omega Sentinel. So she was human at one point, I think in previous stories, but now she's part machine and part human.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And so then they're just going through and kind of figuring out what they're doing, or how they're going to take this and make it to their advantage. Basically, they're just having a conversation, and they finally see this giant sentinel head in the middle of this thing, which I guess is what they're after.
They're using that for, I think, to expand the space station, but I don't remember if they plan to use that as
like a weapon or something.
A weapon, yeah.
So in the middle of this giant space station is this huge ass fucking sentinel head. And then they have this little section with these Stan soapbox things, which were obviously Stan Lee's little, I guess it's just him just talking shit. And I don't know if he was writing these back in the day. And this one was from December of 1968. It was kind of cool. He was just talking about how people talk shit about people who read comic books, and he was just saying, well, hey, comic books are basically the same thing as fucking TV and movies. So you can't say that this is for kids or this is whatever. It's, it's immature to read these things. It's kind of like how I feel about wrestling,
Yeah, this was during the time that Stan Lee had passed away, I think. Either the year, so 2021, I think, was the year. Either 2020 or 2021 was the year that Stan Lee passed away. So they started adding these little things of
like his quotes and shit that he would,
some random shit.
Right. Yeah, so it's kind of cool. And then we get into this page with what the exact Orcus protocol is. And this is how we kind of see a little bit how it works within the overall larger Marvel kind of universe. Because you can see on the human side, basically, they're just trying to make a doomsday device to destroy fucking mutants. And it's crazy because all of these organizations, AIM, SHIELD, Strike, Sword, Alpha Flight, Hammer, Armor, and even Hydra are all involved in this, trying to basically make this thing so that humans can have the edge again and stay on top and not go extinct. Because that's kind of how they're viewing this whole mutants getting this Krakoa deal going. This is like an extinction level event for humans, kind of.
Yeah, because I think at some point it's mentioned that humans have 20 years before mutants become a threat and possibly the extinction of humanity itself.
Yeah, and then it goes on to just show the percentage of like resources that are used for this Orcus objective or whatever. And then that's when, you're getting into this. It was cool to see them explain the back history of this in this way, because, if a lot of people don't know what any previous history could have been or was, it's made very clear in this book. This is what the canon backstory is, right?
Yeah.
And so it just goes from like a year ago to 6 months to 2 months, where now they're basically saying, oh shit, we've seen all these activations of the X gene, and now there's more mutants coming in and more people are joining them up. And then it's talking about Xavier, how he's an activist, he's been buying all these pharmaceutical companies, and he introduced these new drugs essentially that they were talking about earlier. And it'll basically, if they were going to just destroy some of the human financial elements here, it's a great move to basically say, cool, we got these things that we can synthesize into drugs, and we're just gonna give them away for free, so no one needs any more pharmaceutical companies, and we can just financially destroy you. And this is one part of their plan, basically, is what it seems like. And then it gets to 2 months prior, the mutant nation of Krakoa gets established, and that's when they say, oh, we've now activated the Orcus protocol, which is basically them saying that we've done all this research, we've seen all this shit. After this Genosian genocide that happened when, like you said, 16 million mutants died, they kind of figured that they wouldn't be able to repopulate, but eventually the dominant species would be Homo sapiens superior, whatever the fuck they're called, Homo something superior, right?
Yeah,
that's what the mutants are called. And so now they're saying that shit, man, they're reproducing faster than we originally anticipated, and all this Genosian genocide did was just buy us a little bit of time that we didn't even know that we had or needed. So now this guy's basically saying they got 12 years before mutants essentially take over and are the dominant species on the planet. Whoops. And then it just gives you the command structure of, who's in charge. And
yeah, it says machine liaison Karima Shapander, who is the Omega Sentinel, meaning I think she's part human, but for sure she's more machine than human.
Yeah, and she's like she's like Omega. That's like to signify that she's on the same level or no? As like an Omega level mutant?
I think she's kind of like the end of the tree or the top of the tree when it comes to Sentinel, or the pecking order, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Because I mean, there are. I mean, you have Sentinels, right? And then you have like Nimrods, and then you have Bastion, who is how would you call him? Bastion is like his own independent Sentinel, but I can't remember if he's an Omega Sentinel, but let's just call it like the highest end Sentinel.
Okay,
like you have some. I think you have like your own autonomy, but you're still, the directive is still to wipe out mutants.
And then after this little backstory thing, we get to fucking what's his name, old Sabretooth, and fucking what's her name, Mystique, right?
Yeah,
they're doing some mission in a storage facility.
Yeah, so it's called damage control, which is they house what appears to be several different models or marks of the Iron Man suit and a bunch of other shit from, I think, from the Fantastic Four, and they're trying to infiltrate that to gather some information. I don't remember exactly what it was. Probably should have took note of that.
Yeah, they were trying to get some kind of information out of this, and basically they get it. They break out, and this is when the Fantastic Four show up,
which Hickman wrote. So it is kind of nice to see him writing them again, if only for an instance.
Yeah, and so they basically show up, and they're like, "Hey, fucking Sabretooth, you all are pieces of shit, and you guys need to quit stealing stuff." So they basically get into this little fight right before we go into an explanation of what damage control is. And then that's basically what we just said is, yeah, they're essentially have all these fucking Iron Man suits and all these high level items basically, right? And so it lists all of them. It's got all the fucking Soul's Anvil, Soul's Hammer, fucking all the Iron Man marked different fucking suits and shit, multiversal beacon. And so they basically, Reed Richards and Tony Stark wanted to not let anybody get these items. But essentially, the way that they did it failed because Reed Richards was missing and Tony Stark was presumed dead. So all the rights to all this shit is being contested, essentially.
Yeah, shit, man. I would love to. I probably shouldn't have made note of this, but I assume they want to prevent this shit falling into the hands of Orcus because they don't want these technologies to be used against them, against the mutants.
Right.
They don't want Stark technology to be used against mutants. So they're possibly stealing all this information so that those schematics can't be used against them now that they're a sovereign nation. I mean, they're trying to go through all measures to prevent themselves from going extinct.
Right. Well, what you can see too, this is starting to draw out, I guess, like it's showing the lines that not all mutants or not all those are on board for this Krakoa thing. Because obviously the Fantastic Four, now they're not, I don't know if they're really considered mutants per se, but
No, they're not, because
they're just extra human ability people.
they're superhuman because they went through some storm, some supernatural
That gave them their
storm
powers.
that gave them their powers and stuff. And so they're not technically mutants. But as we come to learn in the later panels, or rather pages, when Cyclops shows up, he actually says something to Reed Richards, which is really funny. It was somewhat funny, but yeah, we'll get to it.
Yeah, so then we get back to the old tour with the ambassadors of the world and their...
And these two women, the blonde ones that seem identical, they're like the Cuckoo sisters, or the Cuckoos.
Mhm.
I think there's more than two, because I think there was, I don't remember if there was five, but they're telepathic.
Oh, okay.
So they're telepaths, and they're I guess subservient to Magneto. So they're right now they're just wandering about and showing the ambassadors what they're capable of. They have these portals, and they're starting to have their suspicions about, well, what the fuck? What does this all mean? Like, why do you guys have portals? Why do you? And how come you have them? What are you gonna do with them? Because I think one of them points out, like, you could move an entire army within seconds, as opposed to 1,000 years.
And no one would know about it.
Yeah.
Like, that's what they were saying. Like, there's a military application to this. And what's very interesting about this panel, with all of them looking with this big out, like this kind of broad lens shot of the area that they're in, is you can see like how Magneto stands out, man. Like the absence of color, really, as opposed to everything that's like super colorized. It's crazy how, like, man, it's cool to again separate him from everybody else. Like, again,
he's holier than thou, dude.
yeah, like he's messianic, as you say.
Yeah, is that the right word, messianic?
I feel like that is, because it's like a messiah figure, a messiah type figure.
I feel like I've been saying that. I'm like, am I actually saying the right meaning?
Do I actually know what that word means?
or relating to a messiah?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah, and so this is when we get into that portion where they're talking about the language, and which we talked about earlier, and then he kind of explains about how, oh yeah, every mutant has it. It's telepathically imprinted in them once they get here, so everyone knows it. And he basically says, you know, it's not Russian, it's not English or French or Chinese or whatever, but it's our language. And he kind of makes this thing over here about like, oh yeah, this is what a culture would do. Like, we're a culture, like we're a thing. Like, you guys are still not understanding that or wanting to accept it, basically.
Mhm.
And he says basically like, and this is where you get to see Magneto and Charles's past disagreements of how to do this. It just shows they were both trying to do the same thing all along. They were both trying to make the same exact thing, just in two different ways. And now that they're on the same page, this is fucking happening. That's all that the mutants needed, was the two essentially most powerful dudes or most knowledgeable dudes to get together. And now this is happening for them. Because that's what he says. He says, this is exactly what we're doing. Charles is making a fucking a culture, a civilization, essentially.
Yeah, and there's man, I almost want to ask if you could pause it for a second, because I want to make sure I got this thing right. Because what page is this?
Shit. Does it say at the bottom here? I don't think it's. Oh wait, it's pay. Oh shit, I don't know. They have page numbers on here.
All right, let's pause it for a second.
All
Just for, because I don't want this to end up being a long pause. I just want to find the thing.
We'll stand by real quick. Hang on. You guys won't notice a difference.
We Gucci.
Yeah, we're good. Go ahead.
All right, so there's obviously a lot to be dissected from this book. I mean, I know there's probably a million things that could be dissected about that whole damage control thing, because I don't remember what the Soul's Anvil and Soul's Hammer are relevant to, but I'm sure there are a number of people that are comic experts that could pinpoint exactly what each of those things mean. But anyways, so I was reading through this thing that breaks down specifically about that subject that Magneto's talked about, how in order to have your own culture, you have your own language. So if you want to look into something like that, there is a hypothesis called the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis that specifically talks about everything that he says in page 30 of this specific comic book. So if you want to learn about the relationship between language and culture, go ahead and look into that. That's the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis.
Yeah, otherwise known as linguistic relativity is what it's kind of generally broadly referred to. But yeah, it's a very interesting concept, controversial to say the least, but cool anyway. So now they're showing him around more Krakoa shit, saying, hey, this thing's not limited by distance or elevation or environment. This is unlimited, essentially, in what we can do here and what our capabilities are. They're kind of like showing off now at this point.
Oh yeah, and the worst part is they're playing. I mean, as Xavier, or even I feel like Magneto's downplaying what's actually happening, because they talk about the Sun Tzu Art of War, and I think they talk about a part where appearing weak, when you're actually strong, and they're like, oh, we're just here. All we want is our own nation. That's all we want. We want our own culture and we want our own nation. And if you just grant us that, we'll leave it alone. But then you see them planting all these different portals and everything across. I mean, not that they have sinister means of why they're doing this, but I mean, I'd be a little skeptical of them doing this type of shit. And they're also creating the habitats for themselves to exist pretty much anywhere. So what does that tell you? That is, as a human, that would be alarming.
Yeah. And that the one guy says it basically saying, hey, what about the military aspect of all this? Like we were saying earlier. And he's talking about, hey, the advantage of being able to move an army anywhere without being seen at all, you have to throw out the last several thousand years of military strategy, because that's a complete and utter game changer. And he's telling him like, hey, man, people aren't going to like this. Like there's going to be a problem with this. So then they get back into kind of the main room that they were in, and Magneto's dropping more knowledge on them, saying, where you see the instruments of war, I see an unassailable refuge, meaning this is just a peaceful place. You see weapons of war. We see just a place where we can just be us, where we can not be bothered by all that war and all that nonsense. And so then this guy is saying like, nah, man, like, listen, semantics, it's whatever. It's an advantage. And Magneto's telling him like, man, there hasn't ever been a mutant war or whatever.
Technically, I mean, there has been skirmishes between the mutants, but as a full out war that resulted in either of them dying, I mean, that's debatable whether that's true of what he's saying, because there have been instances in comics where things have happened, but just for the sake of the comics, we'll let it slide.
Yeah, and so he's telling them basically that they've never conquered anyone, never taken anybody's land, they never made anybody slaves. That's where the real advantage of Krakoa lies, is what he's saying. Is we're essentially a peaceful people, right? It's like you said, it's that art of war thing that he's doing right here. And so then it's funny because the one guy's like, hey, so when are we actually going to go there? And then the one girl basically tells him, oh, it's neat. You don't. Like,
that's exact. He gives this whole spiel or whatever. And he's like, that's the neat part. You don't.
Yeah. Like, it was pretty fucking hilarious. And he's basically, Magneto goes on this speech about how, listen, Charles' offer is the offer, right? We are the evolutionary beneficiary of the whole planet. Like, it belongs to us, but we're not going to claim it. We're going to let you have it. And we just want this little tiny piece carved out just for us. This little island, right? It's ours and it's no one else's. Humans are not welcome here. Like, there's no place for them.
Which is funny because it's like when Adam and Eve were kicked out of the Garden of Eden, they too were not welcome in paradise. And as far as we know, Krakoa is a utopian society.
Yeah.
For the mutants. So they too are not welcome as humans because they are flawed and they do not match up to the evolutionary step, which is Homo superior.
Yeah, basically. And then so you get into the next page is it cuts back to the battle between the Fantastic Four and Mystique and Sabretooth. And man, it's funny. I didn't notice this in maybe when I was looking at it earlier, but like now it's on a bigger screen. Like you can see like half of Mystique's ass cheek just hanging out of her fucking pants, man. That's pretty for her, whatever this is, like this little
Her
dress thing.
garments.
Yeah, it's pretty funny. So then now they're like, we got to get the fuck out of here. So they're trying to like open up a portal, or they do open the portal, and they're like bouncing out. And of course, Sabretooth gets his ass fucking caught in a box from what's her name?
Sue Richards.
Sue Richards. She fucking jams his ass up, and they're just like, yo, you know, what's going on here, fellas? And they're like, oh shit, someone's popping through, and here it comes old boy Cyclops.
Yeah, and this is his Krakoan attire. Not that it has any special abilities, but these are his garments now as a Krakoan, I guess you could say.
Yeah, pretty cool. Then he's being all nice and shit, and he's like still going to think, oh man, I heard you got married, man, Mazel Tov, like, you know, you know, and he's just being like, he's being all nice and shit. Oh, how's everybody doing? What's going on, guys? Hey, let me take old boy Sabretooth off your hands, man. Like, let me just take him back. And then Reed is like, nah, dog, we just fucking handled this. Like, why would we go ahead and hand him over to you? He just committed an egregious crime against us. Like, get the fuck out of here. And Cyclops is like giving a nefarious fucking look on his face, even though you can't see his eyes. But
Got a little bit of a smirk going on.
He's like, come on, buddy. You're a smart guy. Dr. Richards. He calls him by his professional name. You know what amnesty means. And he's like, oh yeah, bro. He's like, I get it, but nah, man, he basically killed a bunch of dudes over here. That shit don't count anymore. You can get straight fucked on that. We are not handing this dude over. So Cyclops is like, look, man, come on. He's just trying to con him into doing it. And he's like, no dice, ain't happening. So he says, very well, I can see that you have a strong opinion about this. And he's like, well, why don't you have him? We'll just deal with this in another way. Like, you guys can take him. It's all good. Like, basically just kind of being like full heel mode right now, which is pretty funny to see Cyclops doing that, because Cyclops of the X-Men was always the goody two-shoes, upstanding citizen type fella. And he's gone away from the bright colors of his past garb, but now he's wearing this dark black with like this blue outline on it, you know, the Krakoa garb, as you called it.
Well, yeah, just not that it's gives him any special abilities,
No.
but this is just what he's wearing now.
Right. Well, it's his color palette is now leading him into this. Well, now he's kind of being this this kind of sort of a bad guy, or this anti-hero character almost. Because I know people love the X-Men, but in terms of looking at this from a human perspective, well, he's the enemy, you know. This right. So Sabretooth is trying to, he's like, come on, man, like, fucking get me out of here, man. And then they're like, nah, dice, bro. He's like, we got this. So then they just have a little bit of an exchange, and Cyclops mentions the kid. Wait, didn't he mention somebody that was
Franklin Richards, because he is actually a mutant. He was born with abilities. He can manipulate reality itself.
Yeah, he's one of the Omega level mutants, right?
Yeah, he is.
Yeah.
He's one of the Omega level mutants. And Cyclops is like kind of a douchey move.
Yeah.
He's like, oh yeah, let your boy know he can come home.
Yeah, whenever he's ready, we're waiting for him.
Yeah.
Like, you know, his real family is here waiting for him, basically, is what he says.
His own kind.
Yeah, which is fucked, because they could never be his kind, basically. And then that's when we get this page about what an Omega level mutant is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, you know, it's a mutant whose power is unfathomable, or there's no definable upper limit to their powers classification. So they give a couple examples. They have a list of who all these ones are. And, you know, you've got Jean Grey on there. You've got fucking Magneto. You got Storm. Those are the ones that are, you know, the obvious ones. Then you have Powerhouse, which is Franklin Richards. and it tells you like what their, you know, power is and stuff. So, and it tells you all of their affiliations. Most of them are either none or Krakoa, and there's one which is Franklin Richards, who is of the human allegiance.
Yeah, and that's because, I mean, that's the environment that he grew up in. He's not that many people would know he is a mutant, because when you talk about the Fantastic Four themselves, they got their powers by their DNA getting altered with that storm or whatever the fuck that caused them to get their abilities. But since he is born with abilities and he has a gene that allowed him to, you know, develop powers and stuff, he is mutant by birth. So he should technically be with the X-Men, but he's with the Fantastic Four. So that's his proper family. Yeah.
So then it talks about this Omega Protocol, which is basically just saying, hey, this is Krakoa's greatest natural resource, Omega level mutants. Like, this is something that no one can really make. Like, this is our biggest thing, our biggest advantage that we have. So we need to do everything we can to make sure that they are continuing to be produced by reproduction or whatever they're going to try to figure out, and then protect them, right? Because we need them in case shit goes down.
Yeah, and it is kind of weird that they're talked about as the greatest natural resource, like that they're a utility.
Yeah, well, they are. This is their weapons of mass destruction.
I know, but they're human. They're not.
They're
human.
people. Yeah,
but they are living things with independent thought and shit. But to be talked about as a utility or whatever, and then it says in quotations, one people, one tribe, one family. So everybody serves a purpose, but it's Xavier's purpose. You know, it's not like they're independent of that. It's almost a little bit cultish.
Yeah. A little. It's like communism essentially. Like, is what it's turning into with the mutants here. Fucking communist mutants. So then we go back to the Krakoan habitat in Jerusalem. And this is when we start to see Magneto. What's the word? He starts to drop the mic. He has his like mic drop moment.
Oh, man, it's so good.
It might be the hardest line I've ever heard in my life, dude. I texted you that after. I was like, dude, that might be the hardest fucking thing anyone's ever said in the history of words. And it's so fucking good. And so he basically mockingly, he's like, okay, so everyone, what have we learned today? And they're just like, oh, bro, like, you know, they start going off and they're like, nah, he's like, I wasn't talking to you, motherfucker. And he's talking to, what's her name?
One of the Cuckoo sisters. Yeah. Sophie, or I forgot the other one's name. But he's talking to one of them.
Yeah, and he's basically, they fucking have been reading all these people's minds. And as it turns out, none of them are actually ambassadors from any of these countries. They're all there for a military purpose, right?
They're serving some other authority or some other organization, and she's basically reading all of them. Yeah, they're all plants.
Yeah, they're all just plants from other stuff. So now she goes on and explains who each one is and what section they're from, and
it says Strike, Shield, Sword, all these organizations.
And so then she basically goes like, oh yeah, by the way, one of them's got some kind of a weapon. I don't know, you want me to do something about it? And he's like, don't worry. And he fucking takes this dude's gun apart piece by piece, and like he pulls it out of the guy's fucking holster, takes it apart right in front of him, and he's like, oh hey man, what the fuck? And then he's like, I wasn't gonna do it, it was just, you know, for protection. And he's like, yep, that's how it always starts, doesn't it? You know, that's how it begins. It's, you had these things for your protection, and now here we go.
Man, he looks fucking menacing here, dude.
Oh, yeah.
Because the angle is him looking downwards towards this person. I don't know what the fuck his name is, but it really doesn't matter because, I mean, he looks at them like fucking ants.
Yeah. And so she says, like, oh, do you want me to escort this guy out? And so this thing that he says right here, this is like he says, no. Some would be offended at a wolf presenting as a sheep, but I have learned hard lessons from your kind, so I know the truth. You are all wolves. And that's the hard lesson that he learned. There are no sheep. Everyone's fucking, that's his extremism. Everyone's a fucking asshole.
Yeah.
Or everyone's potentially a threat.
And for the sake of talking about, because it was talked about briefly amongst these ambassadors meeting up with the Krakoa ambassador, Magneto, the Sun Tzu thing again. They too appeared weak, but they're also showing strength with that guy had a pistol, and maybe he was considering shooting him at one point, but now he's been rendered obsolete.
Yeah. And so Magneto goes on to say about how it's good that you guys are all here so you can, I want you to tell your masters essentially what I'm about to say. And he basically just tells them, Charles made you an offer that's graceful, it's full of love, but it's ironclad. It's not a negotiation. Things are different. And as you begin to realize that these things are different, and now they're final and inevitable, that you'll eventually learn to be grateful for the generous take that we've done and the generous things that we've given you, basically. And so then the guy says, do you know what you sound like, buddy? And then Magneto's like, oh yeah, I do. And it finally feels so good to say. And he's like, so that this is where we get into that, like what you were saying about the iconography or the blasphemies and stuff. Like,
yeah,
they're like, oh, so you summoned us to Jerusalem to what? Threaten us? And he says, a promise is not a threat, ambassador. And I summoned you to this place for wholly superficial reasons. And this is some of the hardest shit I've ever heard, man. He says, and I'm just going to read it verbatim because I think it's really cool and I think people need to, hear it. You see, I know how you humans love your symbolism almost as much as you love your religion. And I needed you to understand you have new gods now, implying that they are the gods of this world. And that's it. And that's some of the hardest shit I've ever heard in my life. And like you said, the blasphemy of it, of bringing them to their places of one of the most holy sites in the world, essentially in Jerusalem, and bringing them there to basically tell them that those gods are dead. You have new gods now, and you're looking at them.
Yeah, because their potency as mutants to have powers manifest in themselves is just ridiculous in concept, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they have a corporal form, but they're godly in that they have power. And for Magneto to do that in Jerusalem, and I don't know if he's a practicing Jew at this point because he's getting high off his own supply. It's straight blasphemous, dude. Like the audacity to do that in Jerusalem when even when it comes to international diplomacy, Tel Aviv is the place where the UN, or rather the US has its embassy, or any other country that has an embassy in Israel. It's in Tel Aviv. So it's kind of a big statement to do it in Jerusalem itself.
Yeah.
It's almost like a middle fucking finger. It is a middle finger. Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a middle finger. And I mean, what a statement to have. And I don't know if that's for his own ego to do it there, to defy his own religion that he was once part of or still is part of. It's a middle finger to religion itself. It's a middle finger to humanity. I don't know if he was doing that for himself or for the mutants, but whatever the case, I mean, he made the statement loud and clear that mutant species are not the subspecies of this world. They are, they're Homo superior.
Yeah.
And
to further follow up on that, they have the next page be this little statement that just says this further biblical, I don't know what the word is, comparisons, but it's like, I have a new word for the lexicon of man, Krakoa. And in the future, when you speak it, make sure you do so softly and with proper deference, for we will be listening. And then that's a quote from Magneto, right? And that's to further ingrain the biblical messianic figure that he has now essentially become, and saying, do not speak of our name because we'll hear it and we'll come for you, basically. Like, we are everywhere.
Yeah, like what is it called? Omniscient?
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Because they are, they are kind of creating that feel with their portals that they're creating with the plants and stuff, because they could appear literally anywhere at any second. But yeah, man, just bitching stuff. I mean, when I read this comic book, I thought, fucking A, man, fucking nice that the mutants get their due for once. It felt good seeing them not be a victim of humanity itself, and to finally flourish in some regard. And I think things get better as these issues roll out.
Yeah. And so that pretty much wraps up this first, issue. Obviously, that's pretty much the end. It's got the reading order at the end. And so the next one we're going to do is Powers of X #1. But did you have any other final thoughts or any final things to say about this this first issue?
No, I do think that the other issues do a better job of exploring more of the other characters, because we do see Wolverine, Jean Grey, and Cyclops. I mean, we get flavors of them in the first issue, but much like anything with a prologue, we still need to get to all the action and all the other stuff and how the interactions happen between the characters. So there's more of that. And it only gets better from here, dude. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I have to say, I'm very excited to continue reading this. Like, this first issue was a fucking banger, and I can't wait to read the rest of it. I've already read the next one, which the next one will be, like I said, Powers of X #1. I've already read that, and man, it was this whole thing is going to be so good. I can't wait to finish it and get, the whole complete story, I guess. And what a cool concept to take two series and then intermingle them into one thing. Like, that's just really fucking cool that they did this.
Yeah. And man, the shirt that I have, I bought from Amazon, and it's literally the Krakoan X or whatever. Because man, this shit bangs so hard. This is all I wear, dude. I'm very much like Mark Zuckerberg, that I don't want to wear any other articles of clothing. I want to be like a cartoon character, and I don't really like other pieces of clothing. I don't like logos or things. I just like plain shirts, but I haven't found anything that I liked. So when I looked this up and I liked the material or whatever, and it had the X logo, I'm like, oh, fuck that. So buying 5 shirts of this. I still need to buy more because I don't know if they'll eventually run out, but I'm going to buy multiple shirts of this, because that's how much of an impact fucking Dawn of X had on me, or House of X and Powers of X had on me.
Yeah, for sure. And so I would say I prefer just to wear no articles of clothing. Like, that would be ideal, actually, in my book. If I could just be naked the whole time, that'd be even better.
I almost took off my pants because I came back from something and I just don't want to wear pants. So I was thinking about doing a pantsless podcast, but for the sake of everyone's safety and sexual comfort, I decided not to.
Well, I just have to say, it's a good thing we weren't doing the Game Rage Wrestling podcast, because Perk Angle probably would have showed up and probably molested you.
So we'll continue to do more episodes that will, I think what this will amount to is 12 episodes for the 12 issues we're going to cover between the two series. So it's six a piece, and we'll be alternating between the two because that's how it reads.
Yeah, and it'll be fun. It'll be a fun time, and there'll be some more comic episodes for you guys. And then I don't know what series we're going to do after this. We're probably going to do something else, obviously, and see how it goes. But for now, you're going to get at least 12 episodes for sure, and then we'll figure out what we're going to do next afterwards later.
All right.
Or unless you have an idea.
I think I might have an idea, because I never actually got to read this myself, but I like the team so much that there was a recent Daredevil series, and that shit was a banger from what I heard from start to finish, and I think it amounted to 35 issues and 2 mini-series or 2 mini events that happened that were pertinent just to
that storyline,
to Daredevil. But I thought maybe we could touch up on that one, because that one looks really cool.
All right, cool. I'm down after this. So yeah, I'm down. So yeah, stay tuned for that. But like I said, at least the next 11 episodes are going to be X-Men related. So if you enjoyed us talking about the X-Men comics, Don't forget to go check out the Game Rage Movies and TV podcast, where we're currently talking about the X-Men 97 animated series on Disney Plus. And you can check out all our other podcasts at GameRageMagazine.com and all that. So anyways, thanks for listening, and we will catch you on the next one.
That was Panel to Panel, the Game Rage Magazine comic book podcast. Thanks for listening. If you want to know more and follow along, go to Instagram and TikTok. Follow at Game Rage Magazine. If you want to follow on Twitter/X at Game Rage Mag. Tune in next time.